Good evening. Topic: Dragons and Dungeons, take two. And the length of this video will be 50 minutes, and that's just because this year is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so what I will do is an overview of what I'm working on, and this one is really for the hardcore fans of Dragon Magazine. It's amazing to see how people in the year 2024 are referring back to specific articles that were published, decades ago in the late 70s, early 80s, around there. So, Dragons and Dungeons is a configuration based RPG, which basically means that the individual game master has to put the thing together himself or herself. So, some assembly required, and it's kind of like build your own system from a limited amount of resources, okay, or sources, I should say. Here for Dragons and Dungeons, it is the first 7 rulebooks for first edition AD&D, and then the first 100 issues of Dragon magazine. So you could say, yeah, Dragons and Dungeons is a homebrew based on the first 100 issues of Dragon magazine. Okay. So required materials, I will present them to you. And from 1977, we have the Monster Manual, okay? And yeah, a lot of you guys already know all of this, but here we go anyway, okay? And then in the year 1978, we get the Player's Handbook. There you go. 1979, Dungeon Master's Guide. And in the year 1980, we get Deities and Demigods. And in 1981, Fiend Folio. 1983, Monster Manual 2. And in 1985, Unearthed Arcana. So that is kind of like the structure that is used, and then into that structure you place the Dragon Magazine articles that you like, okay? And the whole thing is a template, so it's basically do what you want with it. For example, you might want to include articles from beyond the first 100. That's okay, nothing wrong with that. If it makes you happy, then go for it. If I live long enough, then what I will do is I will attempt advanced Dragons and Dungeons, which would cover issues 1 to 200. Okay? All right, so where are the first 100 issues of Dragon Magazine? Rumor has it that they're over at archive.org, okay? And then there's this, but it is super expensive, unfortunately. And let me see, what is the time now? 11, okay. And this actually, it will be approximately 50 minutes. It might be a few minutes under or a few minutes over, but approximately 50. So tonight what I'm doing is alchemical experimentation. I'm just curious as to what would happen if I drank 8 of these, okay? So I've got 4 on the table, and I'm going to go grab myself a smoke. I'll be back 30 seconds around there, okay? In addition to the things that I mentioned, I highly recommend physical dice, okay? And that's coming from someone who plays games and runs games online, although I'm taking a 1-year break from that. And then physical pencil and physical paper. If you can get the rule books in physical form, then go for it. Asking people to get, physical copies of the first, 100 issues of Dragon Magazine is a little bit too much, okay? So the concept of configuration is essential. Okay, so there's no kind of like official way you must play this way or else, that kind of thing. No. It's just basically some assembly required. If you like to build your own system, I think this is a great starting point. And I don't want to take too much credit for it because all I'm doing really is bringing it all together. Okay, I didn't write uh, any of the articles, just to make it clear. And of course, Gary Gygax is the guy who wrote the first three books. Okay, now since it deals with issues 1 to 100, mm-hmm, the first let's say 20 issues, it's basically all OD&D. In other words, 1974 Dungeons and Dragons, right? And then that comes from Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax in that order. Okay. So I guess yeah, you can configure things so you get like kind of like a OD&D AD&D hybrid, which I think is interesting. And thinking about the Gygaxian era of Dungeons and Dragons, that would be 1974 to 1985, around there. Okay, and I'm referring to the time when it is first published. I don't know the details, but common sense says that they must have play tested D&D for maybe a year, maybe even two. And the exact answer you can find in books about the history of the game. Okay, and then take a look at Dragon Magazine. The Gygaxian era of Dragon Magazine would be basically from 1976 to 1985, around there. Okay, and the thing is, what I want to do is something that goes beyond what Gary had intended for first edition AD&D. Um, but I've got a little bit of dilemma. On one hand, I'm thinking, okay, the first configuration that should be made should be a kind of Gygaxian configuration, and then the second one and onwards, just whatever I dream up on a given day, basically. Mm-hmm. Although it's not easy in terms of putting everything together. I mean, I'm just working on currently putting together all of the tables and charts that are listed in the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Unearthed Arcana, and then hyperlinking everything. And I have gained a great respect for people who actually make real role-playing games, that kind of a thing. It's not easy, is it? So at least there's one person out here who sympathizes with game designers and appreciates their work. Blood, sweat, and tears, I guess, is part of it as well. Mm-hmm. At least for some. So, what else is there to be said? Like, I think that taking Gary Gygax out of Dungeons and Dragons is not a good idea in terms of game design. Okay. And regarding what Gary wrote, I would recommend, yeah, man, collect it all, and if you can, read it all as well too. The writings of Gary Gygax I see as being in kind of three tiers. Okay, Tier. The first one would be the rule books, let's say, and then the second one, articles in Dragon Magazine, especially the ones from the Sorcerer's Scroll. Okay, and then the third tier, following that, would be Gary's commentary over at Dragon's Foot and EN World. He made hundreds and hundreds of comments answering people's questions, basically, and well over 1,000 easily. You know, comments or however you want to put it, answers to people's questions. So I never met Gary, unfortunately. So I'm kind of like in the position that people will be in as the decades go on. And let's say 22nd century D&D gamers in that time, none of them will have met Gary. Okay, I've been very lucky to have interacted with many of the TSR alumni and Dragon Magazine alumni. But not as much as I would like. I don't go to conventions. It's a little bit difficult for me to do, unfortunately. Um, I'd love to go to all the good conventions like Gary Con, EGG Con. I've heard North Texas is really good. Gamehole I've heard is good. Yeah, so yeah, if I was like a millionaire or a multi-millionaire, um, I would fly over in my personal Lear jet. Mm. Just a footnote, maybe something that I should have said at the beginning, is sometimes my voice might not be that clear, and the reason for that is I'm in between major dental work, right? So I have to wait until the fucking 23rd of September to go see the dentist again. Yeah, I'm sorry, sorry about that. Yeah, my dentist, his name is Dr. Cliff Burton, basically. Yeah, he's a good dentist, man. But anyway, you guys didn't come here to listen to my health problems and or dental problems. So the method that I use actually to do what I'm doing now is one song, one line. All right. And Celestine, she thought that was kind of funny when I explained that to her. It was a good day, and she was sitting like literally right over there, like 3 feet over there on the throne. The lazy chair that had to get thrown out eventually because it basically fell apart. But yeah, we went, into Mandarin for lunch and came back home, and we were just hanging out, and I was working on something for I think HDL and AD&D, listening to music at the same time and talking to her at the same time. Yeah, so it was a good day, good memory. Yeah, and the reason I'm mentioning that is it's actually dedicated to her. The original idea was to dedicate it to the editors of Dragon Magazine. Common sense, I guess, but unfortunately, she didn't make it to the year of the dragon in 2024. She was born in the year of the dragon in 1976. Okay, so that explains the dedication, and as a kind of um, mourning, I decided not to play in any AD&D games or run any AD&D games just for 1 year. So sometime in 2025, hopefully, I return as a player and I return as a DM. Okay. What else can I say? Quite a lot. So, what would a Gygaxian configuration be? Well, I never met Gary, but he has left us with a legacy of a lot of writing. One moment. Okay, sorry about the background noise. And we did bounce back and forth a few emails, and that was about it. And so now I am thinking, while I'm working on this, probably the best way to start is to do a Gygaxian configuration, and then after that is done, then move on to something that would be a little bit more complicated. And different. The idea that I have is use every single article for OD&D and AD&D if that's even possible. Okay, something in that spirit. Now, there's a lot of articles in Dragon Magazine, of course, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the DM screens. Okay, so one thing that I'm going to do for the first configuration and the second, and probably maybe even all of them, is to, oops, I just got a little bit of deja vu, use the DM screens, okay, basically as is, okay. What that does is it gives a sense of maybe familiarity, and it helps to hopefully dispel a bit of confusion. Like you sit down with your players and you say, okay, yeah, we're using all the articles in Dragon Magazine, that kind of a thing. And there were articles that would revise, like Dragon 80 has an article that revises the attack matrices and the saving throw matrices, okay? Um, and I'm sure that it is an improvement, by Leonard Lakofka. But I think for ease of playability, it's a really good idea. If it's on the DM screen, don't mess with it. Just leave it as is. Okay, as a general kind of rule of thumb. Okay. Now, again, Dragons and Dungeons is a configuration-based RPG, so that means what I just said. It's just a recommendation. That's all, nothing more than that. So it's not like someone's going to show up at your door and tell you that you're playing the game wrong. You can say, "What do you mean I'm playing the game wrong? I'm the one who put it together." But at least this configuration based on the works that I presented to you. And all right, so about structure, the chapter structure in Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Unearthed Arcana, it's the same structure. Okay, they all fit in together, and we see the same kind of thing with the second edition of AD&D, and you know, Dragons and Dungeons has nothing to do with the second edition era, basically. Although I'm tempted to use an alternate kind of access point, which would be the table of contents for the second edition. Okay, but I think it was important to follow the original structure first. And I think that this video, talking about rules and tables and charts might be very boring for some people out there, and that's the way it goes. Not everybody is interested in this kind of thing. If coming here looking for industry drama or politics or something like that, you're going to be sorely disappointed. All right. So yeah, current mission, tables and charts while binge listening to Yes. Okay, so I started in 1969 with their first album, and then every song, what I do is I do one line. Okay, hyperlinked, and then that's done. Um, and then after that, then it's the same method with Led Zeppelin, and then Jethro Tull, and then Uriah Heep, and then Rush. Okay, so that's going to be half of it. So yeah, a lot of music, and sometimes maybe that slows down the rate of production. I guess you could say sometimes it speeds it up a little, but at least there's that sense of forward momentum. Okay. And there's no copyright on that method. I mean, and there are variations upon it that you could use using the music that you like to listen to. And to me, music is first, and I hope that people listen to that and think about it within the context of the Song of Creation, the first part of the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. And on that, I shall say no more. I will leave it as a mystery, something for your imagination. Then after that, this all is going to be, I think, more to this can be perfected, that can be perfected, and on. So then I'll just continue. The Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Slayer, and then of course Dio. Okay, so Dio has kind of the last word. And once I've listened to all of those studio albums in chronological order, then hopefully I will be near the end of the outline. So I left this group. I said I would be gone for 2 months, and after a month, then I decided, yeah, things are going pretty good, and it's probably better to get back to the community and keep in touch, let people know what I'm doing. And with regards to the deadline that I have placed, it's the equinox, the autumn equinox of 2024. So today is, let me see, the 29th. So I have maybe 20 days to finish the outline. I think I can do that. And then if I don't, then I don't. At least I tried, right? Hmm. What else can I say? I mean, I think an okay way to go about things is to just borrow the chapter structure from second edition in D&D. And again, if I live long enough, I will attempt to do Advanced Dragons and Dungeons, which is based on issues 1 to 200 of Dragon Magazine. In that, you would have some OD&D content at the beginning, AD&D content in the middle, and then to finish it off, second edition content. Okay. And a question that people ask me is, when is the 1E era of Dragon Magazine? I would say that the core of that is issues 40 to 140, around there. And the first mention of AD&D in a game article is actually in the Dragon number 20, okay? Now, prior to that, we see mention of AD&D in a couple of advertisements and also kind of like preview or promo articles, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's the Dragon 20, and I think that the farthest that I've seen is like Dragon 180, around there. Okay, so it's a spread of about 160 issues, 40 to 140 being the core, all right? And keep in mind that at a certain point, there is a blending of OD&D and AD&D, all right? And then we see the same thing happen again about 12 years later with a blending of first edition and second edition AD&D. In another Facebook group, what I did is I made a poll about, what's your favorite, first edition or second edition? And I was very pleasantly surprised that one that got the most votes was a blend of first and second edition AD&D, which I thought was, wow, that's pretty cool, right? And generally, first edition and second edition people get along great overall. And I think it's a good thing. So yeah, the second edition table of contents, the chapter structure is worth remembering. And you know what? I will maybe do this in 2 parts. Okay, so this is about 25 minutes. And the reason why is that, I mean, people out there, they don't want to listen to a 1 hour or 50-minute soliloquy, that kind of thing, right? So, so far so good. So I think this will be okay for part 1, and then I'll go on to part 2, that kind of a thing. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. So always remember your fun, your friends, and imagination, and thank you for your posts over at First Edition AD&D. And I will get back to listening to Yes and working on the compiled table of contents and list of tables and charts. And if I didn't mention it already, just before I go, I'll mention it now. The kind of the main page for HTML AD&D. What I will do is I will include all of that on the main page, so that hopefully that will make people's lives easier. So if you know how to use find on page, Control F, then that should hopefully take you to where you want to go to in that site. Okay. You guys have a great night, and thanks for the posts and the comments. Keep them coming. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.